Well, over in the Cotswolds and the Chilterns and parts of England that we know from all those beautiful old English films and Murder in the Midsummer Murders and all those places, they've decided now, James and Rita, that they need to be less white. They're too white. Oh, what a surprise from a Labor government. James, what's happening?
Well, this is a shocking story because there's this outfit called the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Of course there is. Now, I mean, this is one of those stories where you want to sort of imagine what it would be like if they were saying it about any other kind of country or culture. Because what they're saying here is, in England, which is an Anglo-Saxon country, Anglo-Saxon people, the traditional occupants of the...
Are they the First Nations?
The traditional owners, shall we say, of the British Isles are, hate to say it, white, but apparently that's a really bad thing, according to these bureaucrats who think that, oh, no, what's really needed to do is have a big diversity drive, make all of these destinations much more attractive for people of color, for minorities to come and settle and live and visit and do all of the things, because, they've already made London and Birmingham and places like that gloriously diverse, and so why wouldn't you want to do the same thing to the English countryside? But you just have to think, why, if anybody had said, oh, we need to make, Nigeria less black, or we need to make Japan less Japanese, or something like that, people would go nuts. Quite right. They'd say that sounded like ethnic cleansing, and that's what it kind of sounds like here.
Well, let's be honest. There is a war on whites culturally. Throughout the West, throughout the Anglosphere, that's the common thing. That's what Labor think. There are too many white people, the community, the culture.
The enemy is from within. The ones who are waging that war are your self-loathing elite class of white folk, very privileged of it, often, who are railing against Western civilization. They want to decolonise everything. But this almost reads like a skit. And a few years ago, this was a skit. There was some weird article about the English countryside being too white, and it was roundly mocked. Now the government actually has a nationwide diversity plan to make the British countryside less white. So it shows you how quickly you can go from absolute joke material to it being adopted by some hard-left government.
I mean, whatever was in Monty Python 10, 20 years ago is now accepted as the way forward. It's extraordinary.
For as much as we like Monty Python, it was Monty Python, I'm sorry, that did an awful lot of damage to undermine a lot of traditional British culture. Sorry, but that's the case. They really did, because they just turned it all into a figure of fun and so on. But what's happening here is much more part of this much more sinister thing. People out there may have heard about things such as that electronic game that they'd been pushing out to teenagers where, they were sent to like a hate crime registry if they, were interested in saying that immigration needed to be cut down or that British culture is better or anything like that. And it's about teaching people to hate their own culture, hate their own society, hate their own people. We saw the most sinister example of this in Spain last week, where the socialist government, by decree, decided to regularize 500,000 mostly African illegal migrants, because they said quite explicitly, we want to counter the far right, and we all know what's going on there.
Yeah, well, we talked about that last week, and that is absolutely the case, where they're deliberately saying that immigration is used to counter the conservative vote, the traditional conservative vote.
People who want to keep their country the way it is and keep their way of life.
And yet, if you're Jacinta Price and you point that out, then you're slammed from pillar to post for pointing out what is actually by your own side.
Or by her own side.